Right, my name is Elton Brobe, and you're welcome to the Pulse. Wherever you're watching us from, this is Joy News, independent, fearless, incredible, and of course, we are streaming live on our social media handles. Your comments, questions are welcome. Now, let's start with a breaking news this afternoon. Now, fresh demands are being made on the Speaker of Parliament to recall members of Parliament less than 24 hours after the indefinite adjournment of the House. Now, we have details of a new memorandum sent to the Speaker this afternoon, plus other matters that are coming up this afternoon. And my colleague, Kwaku Asante, is our parliamentary correspondent, and he joins me in the studio with this breaking story. Kwaku, so what do we have?
Well, Elton, just in the last few minutes, the majority, through the second deputy majority whip, Alex Jonobu-Atete, have filed this memorandum with the Speaker, and they've attached a list of signatories, a number of NPP MPs who've signed on to this, and it's dated 22nd October, but we understand this has just gone to the Speaker. So it's titled Notice of Meeting by Request under Article 1123 and Order 53 of the Standing Orders. Respectfully, on behalf of myself and the requisite number of members of Parliament from the Majority Caucus, I have the honor to address you on a matter of utmost national importance. In accordance with Article 1123 of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana and Standing Order 53 of the Parliament of Ghana, we hereby formally request a meeting of Parliament. The signatories of members making this request are here to attached. To ensure clarity and emphasize the legal foundation, they cite Article 1123 of the 1992 Constitution. They also cite Standing Order 53.1 of the Standing Orders of Parliament, Standing Order 52.3, as well as 58.4, which all gives the legal basis upon which the NPP MPs are requesting this emergency sitting of the House. Let me read part of it. It says, notwithstanding any other provision of this article, 15% of members of Parliament may request a meeting of Parliament, and the Speaker shall, within 7 days of the receipt of the request, summon Parliament. Again, the standing orders repeat the same, and it says, Parliament shall convene within 7 days after the issuance of the notice of summons. And the Speaker shall summon Parliament within a period determined by the Speaker, and the requirement of a 14-day notice shall not apply. And I see that the NPP MPs, because of the urgent nature of some of the business they want to, they are seeking to tie the hands of the Speaker so that the Speaker of Parliament cannot say that by virtue of 58.4, he is going to actually give a notice in 14 days, which will really render the urgency of the matters that the NPP MPs are. So
this is basically, as you have it, you must make steps. You must take steps to have the House.
Parliament within the next 7 days, at least, at most. In fact, the Speaker of Parliament, if he's so minded, can do so tomorrow or the next 2 days. But within 7 days, he has to request. And the urgent matters for consideration that the NPP MPs, the majority, have attached to this is the request for tax exemption for designated beneficiaries under the One District, One Factory program, the Ghana Financial Stability Fund, that is the 250 million IDA facility that is still on the books. It has not been approved. And then some bills, the EPA bill, that is part of the IMF conditionalities we are looking at, the Social Protection Bill, the Customs Amendment Bill, Budget Bill, the Ghana Boundary Commission Bill, and the Interstate Succession Bill 2022, yes. And that is the basis on which the majority says there are key government business they want to deal with, for which reason they do not believe that the House can stay any longer without coming to deal with this. And then they present the context and the justification. They say, as Mr. Speaker may recall, Parliament had adjourned sine die on Tuesday, 22nd October, without any explanation as to the circumstance leading to the adjournment. You may also recall that at conclave, you confirmed the service of a Supreme Court order which was explicit. At the time, the above stated items had been advertised and scheduled to be carried. We wish to emphasize that this request is made in utmost good faith and in the national interest to enable the government discharge its constitutional and democratic obligations to the people of Ghana. So this memo has since gone to the Speaker of Parliament, Aban Bagben, signed by the second deputy majority whip with an attached signatory, a number of NPP MPs, majority MPs, who've signed this and are calling on the Speaker of Parliament to immediately, within 7 days, recall the House to sit immediately and as an emergency to deal with urgent government business, Elton.
So this one doesn't give the Speaker room of 14 days to deliberate on this and another 7 days to decide whether or not to sit.
Yes, in fact, they are pained to stress the specifics of the standing orders and the understanding of it that says, because it's an emergency, and I've quoted some of them, because it's an emergency, when you are recalling Parliament, you need to give a 14 days notice. But they say these are emergency times, emergency issues that they want to deal with, urgent matters, for which reason they do not believe that that 14-day rule of notice should apply. And so they are asking. You will recall that in the last 3-4 months, the majority have asked Parliament to be recalled 2 different occasions. And all those 2 different occasions, the Speaker of Parliament gave a 7-day notice.
Right.
And then he actually waited for 7 days prior to receiving this memo and then recalled Parliament. So it took about 14 days before the House starts. And they are pains to insist that those provisions should not apply in this instance because they believe there are key issues that they want to address immediately for the government to deliver on its obligation to the Ghanaian.
And this memo comes with signatures of the required number of MPs that can trigger such a recall.
Well, yes, it does come with it. And if you look at the attachment to this, there are about 10 pages of signatures to mention some of the names. Alexander Afenyomarkin, the majority leader himself, has signed. Patricia Page, the deputy majority leader, has signed. Idris Habib has signed. Alex Tete has signed. Prince Abakasamo, another Frank. Okay, he hasn't signed this, but of course, his other colleagues have signed. Obviously, I'm sure they tabled this at the House office for MPs who can come immediately to sign. But they have been able to marshal the requisite number of 15% of all 275 MPs to be able to anchor this constitutional and standing order provision.
And the memo itself is signed by who?
It's signed by Alex Jonubu-Atete, who is the Deputy Majority Whip and MP for Sefia Kontombra.
Among the urgent matters that, in their opinion, requires immediate attention is the Environmental Protection Agency Bill 2024. Yes. We understand that there is a development on this matter as well from the NDC side. Well,
yes, in the last few minutes, the NDC MPs have put together a private members bill that they are asking the Speaker of Parliament to put before the House by virtue of LI 2462 that allows for mining in forest reserves. We know it was part of the reasons why organized labor decided to suspend its labor action because the president had assured them that right when Parliament resumes, they'll put this LI before them and get this done. And so they were wishing that that would be done, but throughout the sitting of the House, that has not been done. And the majority MPs say they need that EPA bill passed. And as part of the EPA bill being passed, it will be anchored on revoking that LI. That is the pathway government wanted to use. But NDC MPs for Tamale North, Alassane Suhuyini, who's also the ranking member on the Lands and Natural Resources Committee, Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, MP for North Town and chairman of the Assurance Committee of the House, and MP for Medina, Francis Xavier Susu, a member of the Subsidiary Legislative Committee. They've put together a private members bill, and they are asking the Speaker of Parliament to get the clerk to Parliament to work together with the Legislative Drafting Department of the House to put together this LI as soon as possible, put it before the House, and then revoke LI 2462 that allows mining in forest reserves. Just before I walked in here, I had an interview with Alassane Suhuyini, who says the reason why they are doing this is because they believe government is not willing to take the necessary actions for this LI to be revoked. They say that government is only paying lip service to this LI being revoked, and that is why they are going by way of a private members bill to revoke.
But the ASNI have taken fall short of them demanding an immediate sitting.
Yes, in fact, they did not say anything at all. In fact, part of the question I'm asking them is that Parliament is currently prorogued. They are not sitting now. And if Parliament is going to come back after December or close to election, how do you get this private members bill? And this is a bill to go through all the stages of lawmaking to be able to get this. So the majority side overreaching them and saying that these are urgent matters that we need to come to Parliament to deal with immediately so that the people of Ghana can be rest assured that the government they had elected in 2020 is not resting on its oars and delivering on this mandate.
Okay, thank you so much. Kokwa Asante is a parliamentary correspondent. The breaking news this afternoon is that the MPP caucus in Parliament, led by the second Deputy Whip, he sent a memo to the Speaker of Parliament demanding an urgent recall of Parliament to consider what he described as urgent government business. Amongst them is a request for tax exemption for designated beneficiaries under the One District, One Factory program. Thus, tax waivers government is seeking for some companies operating under the One District, One Factory initiative. Ghana Financial Stability Trust, an international development association facility of $250 million US dollars. There are also 3 bills that, in their opinion, are of urgent nature and requires Parliament to sit less than 24 hours after the indefinite adjournment by Mr. Speaker. The Environmental Protection Agency bill that is seeking to repeal the provision that allows mining in forest reserve. There's also the Social Protection Bill, Custom Amendment Bill 2024, Budget Bill 2023, Ghana Boundary Commission Bill, and of course, Intestate Succession Bill. And they are of the view that these are matters that demand urgent attention of Parliament. The reason why he's gotten the signatures of members of Parliament, and within 7 days, coming under the relevant provisions, the Speaker should recall Parliament from its indefinite break so that these matters can be put before the House. We are closely monitoring this development. I'll bring you further details as and when we have it. But let's stay a little longer in Parliament, because remember the controversy that arose yesterday. Now, the Speaker adjourned the House indefinitely, and we don't know when that adjournment will elapse, amid a controversy over 4 vacancies on grounds of crossing carpet following the affected members of Parliament decision to file for the December 7, 2024 parliamentary elections in different capacities, either as independent candidates or on the ticket of a political partner. Following that, the MPP side, led by its leader, Alexander Fayomakin, filed an ex-party motion at the Supreme Court asking that the ruling of the Speaker should be halted. The Supreme Court, after hearing the plaintiff, directed the Speaker to halt implementation of his ruling until the final determination of the matter. Here is the Speaker, Alban Babem, at yesterday's sitting.
In accordance with Standing Orders 59, adjourn the House indefinitely. That is sine die. I want to quote Standing Orders 59:1. It says, the Speaker may, in consultation with leadership, suspend a meeting of the House indefinitely or for a period determined by the Speaker, having regard to the public interest and the exigencies of the state of affairs in the country. Honorable members, I have consulted leadership, and I am exercising my discretion to decide to suspend the meeting of the House indefinitely. The House is accordingly adjourned sine die.
Well, the Speaker's statement, however, fell short of accepting or rejecting the order of the Supreme Court suspending his ruling on the vacancy. Now, this has opened a major controversy on the status of the affected MPs. A retired Supreme Court Judge, William Atuguba, thinks until the order is set aside, the Speaker must respect and implement the order of the Supreme Court.
Quorum will arise if the party is the Parliament is sitting. Nonetheless, as a legal question, court orders take effect according to their terms. When a court order is made, it is to be obeyed according to its terms, unless it's set aside.
Okay.
And so, at first, it was a deep-seated principle of the common law that if an act is null and void, it is automatically null and void. You don't even need court process. But later, there was a vote fast, probably on grounds of public policy, peace, and that kind of thing. And particularly in Ghana, it was said that notwithstanding the nullity of any court process, you can't disregard it. Your only way is to go and have it set aside. That's how to extricate yourself from its effect.
Okay.
Originally, when this matter arose, and I read those provisions, I thought they will relate to somebody, if somebody is contesting towards election into the next parliament, that this provision will not hold him as having crossed carpet. But I must confess that when I thought of it over and over again, and particularly the terms of the reasoning of the speaker was pronouncing on this matter, and even having regard to the realistic practice of the parties themselves. We all know of Michael Quest's time. You know what happened there?
Yeah.
Yes. And so, you see, politics aside, always, when things are settled, and that's my trouble with politicians. Things are hardly settled. They are settled in one way. When it is in their favor, they are happy with it. When it goes against them, they try to unsettle it by all means. These days, when people are talking law, I feel that we have to distinguish between political law and actual law.
But again, you understand that lawyers have different meaning to every subject. So senior law lecturer at the University of Ghana, Dr. Justice Frimsrai, says the Supreme Court use of the word stay was ineffectual because what they were seeking to stay had already happened.
If you take the Supreme Court's order on the face of it, it is simply saying that the court, Parliament should stay the execution of its declaration. And I think that the court's using of the word stay was, in a way, ineffectual because what the court was seeking to stay from happening had already happened. So the previous date, which was the 17th, Parliament declared the seat vacated, and then the balance in the House, changed, so that the former minority became majority, and the former majority became minority. Okay. So if the court is making an order which is directing the speaker to stay the execution of that declaration, that could not be something that would be done because it has already happened. The changes have already occurred. And in fact, it's based on those changes that the plaintiff, that is Honorable Afenyo-Markin, went to the court to ask the court that, look, this is what has happened in Parliament, and I'm asking you to reverse. So the order is, as it stands, on the face of it, has some problems. But when you read the order together with the proceedings that are in court, the processes that were filed in court, you could see that the stay could be replaced with the word reverse. Now, when the word reverse is replaced with a stay, what is going to happen is that then Parliament would have to take a decision for the reversal. It would have been a different thing if Parliament was in the process of taking the decision and the Honorable Afenyo-Markin went to court to stop Parliament, and the court said Parliament should stay.
And there's more meaning to this. Private legal practitioner and host of News File on Joy News, Sam Seladi Anjanini, says disobedience of the court's order can only be suggested if the affected MPs were not allowed into the chamber yesterday.
There was a disobedience of the order if those affected members of Parliament attempted to enter Parliament and they were disallowed, or they entered Parliament and they were not counted when they had to be counted for whatever purposes, or they had to vote and their votes, were ignored and not counted. Or they wanted to make a contribution and they were disallowed from making a contribution on the basis of the Speaker's information to Parliament. To the extent that there is no evidence that they attempted to access Parliament and they were prevented, you cannot suggest, not by the stretch of any imagination, that the orders of the court have not been complied with.
So in the midst of all this, interpretation being given to this matter by the legal practitioners, the question is, where are we on the true state of the affected members of Parliament? We are talking about Cynthia Morrison for Agona West, Kojo Asante Suhum in the Eastern Region, Andrew Esiama Fomena, who is also the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament, of course, Peter Kwache Aka for the Amemfi Central, and he is on the ticket of the NDC. We'll find answers to it. But again, the Supreme Court retired Justice William Otuguba is also waded into the debate surrounding the controversy in Parliament over the 4 vacancy. He argues that the proper course of action to resolve the issue should have been through the High Court, not the Supreme Court.
Well, I think that the proper step would have been to go to the High Court, because specifically Article 90, let me read it, 97(1). A member of Parliament shall vacate his seat in Parliament. All kinds of situations. Then it gets down to F. If he resigns from office as a member of Parliament by writing under his hand address to the Speaker, or G, if he leaves the party of which he was a member at the time of his election to Parliament, to join another party, or seeks to remain in Parliament as an independent member. This is the kind of vacation of office that's involved in this matter, not so?
Yeah.
All right. Now, it goes on to Article 99, 1. All right, let me read it. It's a short provision. 99(1). The High Court shall have jurisdiction to hear and determine any question whether A, the person has been validly elected as a member of Parliament, or the seat of a member has become vacant. Okay? Yeah. So the question of vacancy of parliamentary office is given to the High Court, not given to the Supreme Court.
Well, but the argument people put up is that this has to do with interpretation of the Article 97G and H, and that's why the Supreme Court is clothed with the authority to do that.
You see, that's why sometimes there's a need to be very, very careful in handling constitutional matters of interpretation. It's a very tricky and involved matter. Yes, the Supreme Court has exclusive jurisdiction in the interpretation and enforcement of the Constitution. Nonetheless, the Supreme Court from the beginning held that where the provision is clear and unambiguous, there's nothing to interpret. So if a matter arises in any court, or even be a district court, the lowest, once it's clear, they can go ahead and apply. In that case, they are applying the Constitution, not even they carry it to enforcement. So the mere fact that a constitutional provision comes up does not necessarily mean that the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction. This original jurisdiction is widely couched.
So clearly, the understanding of the Supreme Court position, of course, the position taken by the Speaker of Parliament will continue to dominate discussions until there's finality to this matter. But even as we wait for that finality to be brought on this matter, the breaking news this afternoon is that the second whip on the MPP caucus, that's the majority side, has sent a memo to the Speaker informing him that he has the required signatories to trigger an emergency recall of Parliament to consider what he described as urgent government business. And that breaking news we brought to you. We'll take a short break and return with more here on The Pulse. Of course, welcome back to The Pulse. We'll be taking you to the Central Region for the continuation of the quarterfinal stage of the National Science and Maths Quiz after 4. But before we do that, let's stay with education. Some parents of senior high schools in the country are demanding a reversal of the newly announced senior high school calendar. The new calendar, which seeks to drastically cut the duration of study in order to bring it to terms with pre-COVID calendar. In a statement, the GES said the incoming first-year students for single-track and transitional schools will begin school on Wednesday, October 30, 2024. Also, all continuing students in single-track schools will reopen for the new academic year on Wednesday, October 30, 2024. Well, some parents say they are deeply concerned about the current situation and this implication for the knowledge base of the students and for their tertiary education. Some of them are joining us for a conversation. Let me bring in Samuel Kofi, a parent of Wesley Girls Senior High School. Mr. Kofi, good afternoon and welcome. Right, so
how are you, sir?
I'm good. Also joining us is Gabson Kofi Raphael, General Secretary, National Council of Parent Teacher Association. Raphael, you're also welcome. Right, so we'll bring in Raphael shortly. But Mr. Kofi, why are you worried with what the GES is seeking to do to align the calendar with the pre-COVID calendar?
Thank you very much for the opportunity once again. I should be worried because of how things are getting on. For example, my ward is in the second year, and they're closing up just this weekend. Originally, I was even informed that they were going to vacate in November, 8th of November, meaning at least they would have had about 3 more weeks to prepare. As I'm talking to you, they are writing their exams at a very short notice. From last year, when my ward started school, up to this time that I'm speaking to you, they've completed 2 academic years. But technically speaking, if you look at the way the calendar was even run, it only achieved about 52 weeks, meaning it is only 1 year that they actually spent in the school. And I should be worried because I know the syllabus for the WASI is for 3-year course.
Right.
And if your kids for 2 past years, they have only had 1 effective academic year, I think there's a cause for worry. And this late announcement of Ghana Education Service about them changing the calendar gives you more worry because I don't know how the future is also going to even look like. That's my initial comment about it. Thank you very much.
So if I may ask, basically, your ward is being in the house more than she's supposed to be in school?
Sure. That's the meaning of what the calendar so far has rendered to us.
So as you speak, your ward is what? Is about to write the WASI?
Oh, she is Form 2
She's in
as
Form
I'm
2.
talking to you. And they are vacating this very Saturday. Like I said, originally they were even supposed to vacate mid of November, meaning that by this directive, about 3 weeks had also been taken off from the last semester of the second year academic calendar.
Right.
And their preparation even towards the examination at this short notice is a worry.
So the fear here is that she has not been adequately prepared for the WASI and for tertiary education.
Sure.
And as parents, I know that there is a parent association that you are a stakeholder in her development. I'm wondering whether in the GES attempt to realign the calendar, whether there was any kind of briefing for you parents.
Nothing of that sort happened.
So now,
even as I'm talking to you, like I said, there was the original calendar that we were supposed to go back. And we're all trying to monitor and see how that one will go. Only at this tail end that we are having a new calendar that is trying to, streamline things, which, like I'm saying, it is a cause And what these things have brought to us, we the parents will be raising concern from day one about the way the calendar was being run. You never had a clear, maybe 2 or 3 year calendar that was running smoothly. Somewhere in between the term or the semester, then something will drop in. It will change the whole thing, and then we all not having a good, forecast about what GES was, about. That's the problem.
Right. So, and I'm guessing also that during the period that your ward was in the house, you had to recruit the services of a private teacher to teach her.
Sure.
Right. So basically, Mr. Kofi, what would be your demand on GES? Because it doesn't look like they are backtracking on this initiative.
It's a worry. And my concern and what I am asking for is that probably they have to look at the calendar again. If not, then maybe the duration for the next academic year for them, they have to maybe improve the contact hours, and probably the time that is allocated for the school children to write the exam, we have to look at it. If they are unable to, reverse what they have just thrown out to ask the parents.
All right. We'll leave it here, but we'll seek more answers from the Ghana Education Service. But thank you so much, Mr. Samuel Kofi, a parent of Wesley Girls Senior House. It's about GES new academic calendar that appears not to be sitting down so well with some of the schools. Now, let's talk about illegal mining, because Joy News has uncovered the destruction of large trusts of the Asenyano Forest Reserve, a beneficiary of the Ghana Landscape Restoration Project. A number of citronella trees grown during the restoration project have been pulled down despite ongoing calls for a cessation of mining in Forest Reserve. Rasta Saridonko of our sister station Love FM and his team were attacked whilst filming evidence of these environmental infractions and have managed to file this report.
Asenanyo Forest Reserve is a production forest established in 1940. It covers an area of 22,800 hectares in the Amasia South district of the Ashanti region. About 9,350 football fields of the forest, that is 37.78 kilometers square, has been given out for mining to Edel Metallum Resources Limited. We set out to investigate the environmental infractions engaged in by the company's mining operations at Esumenya. Though the company has been mining for months, our checks indicate they only obtained a license from the Environmental Protection Agency on October 16, 2024. Contrary to its large-scale mining license regulation, the company has been engaged in unconventional artisanal mining methods similar to that adopted by illegal miners. There are no settling ponds or tailings dams as required by law. Contaminated mining residue is left to flow into tributaries of the Ankobra River and the forest environment, contrary to water use regulations. The Asenanyo River, from which the reserve derives its name, is not visible from the mining mess created here. Our team saw indications of the abstraction of clean groundwater into already polluted surface water without the water use permit by the Water Resources Commission. The devastation runs miles into the Asenanyo Forest Reserve. Trees restored under the Ghana Landscape Restoration Project have been pulled down for mining operations. Requests for comment from some known leaders of the company have not yielded any response. The quest of the team to report on the activities of the mine was resisted by a group of armed men claiming to be protecting the concession of Edel Metallum Resources Limited, who physically assaulted the Joy News crew. Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaredonko, Esumenya, Amasia South District, Ashanti region.
Welcome back. Now, let's talk about something significant. Now, starting tomorrow, the Global Conference on Human Resources, HR in Africa, will open in Ghana at the Labadi Beach Hotel here in Accra. It will be on the theme, a global discourse on exploring the emergence and dynamics of artificial intelligence, AI, and human resource technologies in Africa. Now, in the studio to shed more light on this is Johnny Taylor, Junior President of the SHRM, and he joins me. Good afternoon, John.
Good to see you, my man. Good to be here.
First time in Ghana?
No, actually, it's my second time.
Great.
It's been a long time, though.
And I guess Ghana is treating you fine.
Very much so, yes.
So let's talk about the upcoming conference tomorrow. Tell us more about it.
So, you know, I'm fortunate to be the CEO of an organization called SHRM. And we're the world's largest HR association, 340,000 members across the globe in 180 countries. And something really interesting happened in 2022. November 29th, 2022 to be exact, introduction of AI to the world. ChatGPT was born.
I use it a lot.
Right. And all of a sudden, people became aware of this technology. And at first, there was a lot of excitement. But within 6 months, human beings began to fear it because what it represented was job losses, potentially. And that's really what we want to better understand is its impact on societies, on people's jobs, their lives, and their livelihoods.
So, I mean, I have been following the discussion on HR. I mean, it has gained this global attention. We have world leaders talking about it.
Yes.
There's even a call for a slowdown of its integration into the human space.
Yes.
So, this conference, I'm wondering your involvement and how this conference helped to either upscale it or make it more relevant to the way we practice HR.
So that's the challenge, right? You're right. Globally, leaders are concerned about it. Ultimately, machines don't vote. Human beings do.
Yes.
And so if human beings aren't happy with what the regulators are doing, they will resist it and ultimately vote the leaders out. So there's no question. I live in Washington, D.C., and there's a global discussion, especially in the United States, around how far do we let these advancements occur if, in fact, it could potentially eliminate people's ability to work. So yes, there's an appropriate conversation to be had. What we're going to do at GCHRA tomorrow is talk about specifically how this can impact a growing Africa. Yes, we're here in Ghana, but I mean the entirety of the continent is something we've got to understand. How do we upskill? You have a very young population and a huge population under 30, like most of the developed world. That's an opportunity for you, but if they don't know how to use the AI technologies, then they will be left behind. So you'll be large in numbers, but not in impact.
But tell me your perspective. Is it important that we exploit it? What is your take on the very existence of AI and how it is taking over the workspace? You think it is something that must be encouraged?
Yes.
And if so, how so?
So yes, but responsibly. It's the same thing you would say about anything else. There are a lot of benefits to the technology. AI in healthcare, for example, I know in Africa that's an area that you're using a lot in nursing and healthcare, natural language processing. It's very helpful because it will help human beings rid their jobs of stuff that you don't really want to do. The tedious, painful, those parts of the job, AI can help take that and lift that off of our plates. At the same time, you don't want AI to get so far advanced that it replaces jobs.
Absolutely.
The other big one, and we talk about this a lot, is we've got to upskill people to use the technology. A question that I get often asked by HR audiences, by HR professionals is, will AI take my job?
Yes.
And the answer is no. Someone who understands and is proficient in AI will take your job. So there's still a job there for the human being, but knowing how to utilize the tools is critical to people remaining viable employees in the workforce.
So I mean, you talk about the African continent, the continent where with a youthful population, but unemployment is also very high.
Yes.
So how
and AI could threaten that.
Yes.
It could add to the unemployment.
Exactly.
That's right.
So how do we address it and not closing the door to AI?
Right. So, you know, it's interesting. You don't have to look very far than India. Currently 1.4, 1.5 billion people. And what they've been able to do is to not just export their people, but export the brain. So people are now bringing jobs that can't be filled in the United States, for example. We have 8 million open jobs in America right now. Wow. Imagine if that work could be done here. But that means in Africa. But that means your workforce has to be trained on the latest technologies to take advantage of that work. So I think there's huge opportunity to help actually reduce your unemployment rate, especially of young people, if they were trained in it, and then other parts of the world where you have older workforces can bring the work here. Does that follow?
Absolutely.
So there's huge opportunity for AI to actually blow your economy up in a positive way if the workforce knows how to utilize it and becomes proficient in the tool.
So the next question will be, why the focus on the HR practitioner?
Yes, because HR, if you think about it, we are the professionals that are responsible for finding talent in organizations. Again, I can only refer back to my experience in the United States. We have 8 million open jobs, and there are HR practitioners whose CEOs are saying to them, I need people to do this work. I need this work done. So imagine as an HR practitioner, if you could say, I have a colleague in Africa right now where they have plenty of talent, and if we can upskill them in the use of AI, we can actually move the work to them. That's what we're doing. AI, ultimately HR, we are the professionals that help organizations get the talent into the organizations. That's why we're talking about it at HRGCA.
But for now, for you think that you think that the penetration is low.
It is very
especially
low.
On the continent of Africa.
Continent of Africa, 25 to 30% penetration on AI. That trails the rest of the developed world significantly. We're talking 60, 70, 80% in other parts of the world. We think part of it is not because you're not aware of it, is the proficiency. We also have some infrastructure areas, right? It uses intense amounts of electricity and energy, so we've got to make sure that we have the energy and then we have a trained workforce. Those are the two things that we're going to talk about tomorrow at GCH.
A colleague of mine here, I mean, he was sponsored by the U.S. State Department last year, together with other journalists from Africa, to the United States of America, to look at how AI is helping industries grow.
Yes.
And then he came back to say that we are so far behind.
Yes.
We are like 10, 15 years behind in terms of what he saw and how we are using the kind of AI application we are using. He said that we are 15 years behind.
Okay.
Perhaps that explains the reason why this conference is happening in Ghana.
Absolutely. The upskilling, the reskilling, to the getting people to embrace the technology is the biggest barrier. So you have the people, you have young people.
Is there a fear?
There's a fear, of course there is. We're all xenophobic a little bit, right? There's a fear of the unknown, but there's also a fear of, this seems to your point, when you hear stats like we're 15 years behind the rest of the world, then you say, well, we can't catch up. So there's a little bit of apathy that sets in because I can't compete. And then the other part of it is I'm fearful because I don't understand it. And that's human nature.
Just one personal question, and then we can talk about, so for the participant, what should they expect? Right. I mean, the concerns have been raised about how the application of AI can also result in humans becoming a little lazy.
Yes.
For example, there's this tool that I was introduced to, I think last year or last 2 years, ChatGPT.
Yes.
And my thinking was that if I devote so much time to this, I'll become lazy in terms of my own creativity in writing.
Right.
Because then you think that when you are stuck, you can just ask for help and you get it. But to rely more on it means that you are also becoming lazy.
No, you're becoming more productive. That's the idea. So if it took you 2 hours to prepare the perfect memo for your boss in the past, if the first draft and a lot of the research that can be gathered could be reduced to 30 minutes, you can spend the next 30 minutes or the next hour refining it and making it even more creative. So it's not a issue of you becoming
It's rather the opposite.
Right. It's actually quite the opposite. It allows human beings to do what they do really, really well, which is create and innovate. Okay. The machine will take the basic principles of the tedious stuff, the research, remember back in the day, I'm old enough and I think you are, where you'd have to go to the library and check it down. Even with Google, you've got to do all of the manual research. But if that information can instantly be distilled for you, now you can spend time making more interesting and provocative arguments and creative product.
All right. So for those who are participating, what should they expect? What are some of the the key topics that you take them through.
So a couple of things we're going to do is explain what AI is and what it isn't. We're going to talk about AI, and we're also going to, and that's artificial intelligence, but we're all going to talk about artificial general intelligence. And that is kind of scary because that is the theory that AI can actually replace 99% of what human beings do. So we're going to do some textbook basics around what is artificial intelligence and what can it do, what it can't do. Secondly, we're going to teach the HR practitioners how to embrace it in their practice. Because there's a lot of stuff that we as HR practitioners do that's not particularly productive and it's not efficient. It is just not good. And we all, human beings, have our own biases.
Absolutely.
You know, so the computer can help take some of the bias out of our decision making as well. So the negative bias, that is. So we're going to actually teach HR practitioners how the rest of the world, if you think you're 10, 15 years behind, we're going to try and accelerate that so that Africa can catch up with the rest of the developed world with this important and critical technology.
Driving through the airport area, I saw I saw a billboard advertising this program.
Yes.
And I was looking at the personalities coming. I was a big individuals coming, including the BBC head of BBC China, and I saw the name a Ghanaian. I said, hey, a Ghanaian is at this level.
Yes.
Apart from them, who are some of the other people who are coming to take the folks through this training?
Well, so it's a ton of different practitioners. It's a global convening, although it's in Ghana and on the continent of Africa, it's a global convening. So we have people, as you pointed out, from the UK, from the US, from Australia, I understand. I mean, you're really going to have the best and brightest minds in this work coming here to help advance this really important. And again, you have to understand why. Oftentimes your listening audience may say, why Ghana?
Yes.
You have the fastest growing population on the earth. And we know that we're going to need human beings. Right. There's something that a lot of folks don't realize. Most of the world has gotten quite old. We have a birth rate problem in most of the world.
Especially Asia, Europe.
The US, I mean, you name it. Japan, for example, a really odd statistic. A fact, Japan, they sell more adult diapers than baby diapers. So you have something that the rest of the world is going to need, and that's human beings. So all we've got to do is to ensure those human beings That's it.
When the time's
got to optimize the talent.
So for how long will this conference last?
We'll be here through Friday evening, some post-conference things Saturday. So it kicks off tomorrow morning, Thursday, and it will go Thursday and then Friday, and I think there's some final wrap-ups on Saturday, but most of it will end Friday evening.
Oh, so you can look into my camera and speak to them, Johnny.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. Listen, if you really want to know what's happening in AI and how Ghana and all of the continent can participate in this and help us solve for our human resources shortages, then you'll be at the conference because GCHRA is the place to be.
Johnny Taylor, Junior, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll have, what do you call it, an evaluation session.
That's right.
When it's done
in
the studio. But I'd like to thank you so much for coming to, and I wish you the very best in your stay in Ghana for the next few days.
Be well.
All right, so we'll take a short break here on the pause. For more stories, log on to our website, myjoyonline.com. Stories on myjoyonline.com. The breaking news we brought to you this afternoon. The MPP majority in Parliament, they are demanding an emergency recall of the House less than 24 hours after the Speaker adjourned the sitting indefinitely. The reason they provided, including some urgent government business that must be taken. So, more stories on myjoyonline.com. After the break, we'll take you live to the Central Region. It is the quarter-final stage of the National Science and Maths Quiz. My name is Elton Broby. Whatever you are up to in the hours ahead, I hope it's profitable. Good evening.